What is going on, guys, and welcome. In this video we're going to create a navbar that is sitting exactly in the middle of the page, vertically and also horizontally, and you can see over here that it's also a transparent navbar. So let's stop talking and let's actually get to work. So how do we create a transparent navbar in the middle of a banner, or we could also create it in the middle of the page, right? So the first thing obviously what we need is our HTML. And over here, what we would first create is actually a div, and I'm going to give this div a class of banner over here like this. And within this div, we're actually going to place our nav. So I'm going to write nav just like this, and within the nav, we're going to write a unordered list and some list items, right? So here we're just going to say list items, and of course there's going to be a link in there, which is going to have a href attribute. And over here again, we're just going to write home, and over here I'm just going to select the line and copy this, like, I don't know, like 4 times as always. So here it's going to be info, and here we're going to have a survey, and here we're going to have a, I don't know, contact, right? So this is going to be our banner over here, and this is going to be our unordered list, which is going to be our navbar. So here I'm just going to say transparent over here. This is going to be our navbar. So I'm just going to say navbar, and here we're going to create some style tags. We're not going to create an external style sheet, we're going to create an internal. So we're going to say style, and over here we're just going to start styling all our elements. However, in this case, I'm not going to start with the banner or with the nav, because I just want to style the first unordered list, just so you can see how we're actually placing this nav within this banner in the middle exactly. So the first thing what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to start styling with a unordered list. Now what we always can do is actually select all the elements in our file, and I'm just going to say that I would want a margin 0 over here, and I would want a padding 0, just so I don't need to deal with default paddings and margins over here. So I'm just going to say 0, and obviously with all the unordered lists, I would want a list style none, right? But since I'm going to be styling right away the unordered list, I'm just going to say right away that I would want that list to have a width of 100%. Then I would want a list style type none over here, like this. And then I would want a height to be, let's say, 40 pixels, or here like this. And I'm going to say that the line height is also going to be 40 pixels. So something like this. And after that, I'm going to say that this is going to have a border radius, over here like this. And this is going to be like 5 pixels, something like that. Now, what I also want to do is actually add a overflow hidden property, because we're going to be actually floating our list items. We're not going to be setting them inline block, we're actually going to be floating. So over here I'm just going to say overflow, and I'm just going to say that this is going to be a hidden, right? And the reason for that is if we're floating a child element, so over here in this case list item, right? So you can see that this is going to be direct child of a unordered list. Now, if we're floating a child element, the parent element needs to set to be overflow hidden. That's the rule. So therefore, that's why we were actually using this overflow hidden. So here, what we're going to do is we will write float, and we'll write left. So now you can see how they're all floated. And the nice part about it is what we can do is we can actually set the width right now. We can set it to 20%, right? I mean, we can set to any kind of percent, however we want, but the point is that we can actually set it to percentages, right? We don't need to deal actually with the fact that let's say that we need to give a specific value, right? Now you can see that I messed up a little bit because it should be 25 over here. Now I can see how they're evenly distributed. Now the problem obviously is the fact that my text is not in the center. That's why you see them to the left. We'll fix that once we start actually working with the links. But the point is, what we can do, we don't need to set certain pixels. We can actually set it to width. So now I can see it doesn't matter how I'm moving my my screen, right? It's getting bigger or smaller. It's still going to take up exactly 25% of my body over here like this. So the next thing what we would want to do is actually start styling a list item, right? So we're going to say ul, li, and a. So this is going to be our link over here, and we're going to say that we would want our links to be display block, because we obviously want to click them not just when we are actually on a text, but anywhere on the link. So then we're going to say that we would want to get rid of the text decoration of that annoying underline, and then we were going to say the text align is going to be center. So now I can see how they're exactly right now in the middle, and I'm sorry, in the center. And then I'm going to say that the background color is going to be something like Greensboro, right? So I'm going to say Greensboro. So now I can see how I got the color. And then I'm right away going to set the opacity to like 0.5, right? So you can see how they're actually, you know, much more transparent. And the next thing, what I'm going to add is this is going to be the last thing. I'm just going to change the color. And again, I'm just going to say that this is going to be chocolate. So now I'm done with my unordered list. And the only thing that I'm going to do is actually have a hovering rule over here. So I'm going to say ULEI over here like this, and then I'm going to say hover. So as I'm hovering over our links, I would want to have a border to be 2 pixel solid black. So I'm going to say border, and here it's going to be 2 pixel solid black over here like this. And then after that, we're going to say border radius. Again, we're gonna set it to like 5 pixels. So border radius 5 pixels. And now we're pretty much done with our unordered lists and list items, and also a links. And what we want to do right now, we actually want to start styling the actual nav over here like this one, and we want to style the banner. And first I'm going to style the banner, and then I'll show you how we can deal with the nav. So over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that I would want a class banner. This is going to be our class. And now let's decide the first thing what we want is actually width over here. And width is going to be 100% of our banner. And then the next thing what we would want, I would want a height. And I would say that the height would be like 440 pixels. Now you can set it bigger or smaller, or you can set it, you can actually use this image that we're going to be working with for the whole background of the page. But in this case, I'm just writing 440, just because I want to. And the next thing what we would want to do is actually add a background image, right? So background image, here I say URL, and here I have a coffee mug, right? So I'm just going to save this. Now I can see that I have my image. So this is going to be my image over here. And the next thing what I would want to do is actually create a no repeat, right? Because you can see that it's repeating many times, and that's not what I want. I actually just want one image that would be covering everything, right? So what we would need to do is background repeat somewhere found. Okay, background, and we're going to say repeat, and we're going to say no repeat. Now after that, we're going to say background size over here, and we're going to say that the size is going to be cover. So you can see that right now is basically our image is covering our whole banner, right? And this is what we wanted. And now, as you can see over here, that this is transparent, and only thing we'll have to do is actually place this transparent bar all the way in the middle. Now, before we do that, I would just want to set a position over here to relative, because I'm just going to be using a absolute positioning for my nav to actually place it right in the center, right? So I think that we're pretty much done with the banner. So let's jump to our nav, right? Let's style the nav. I'm going to write a nav selector over here. And first thing what I would want is width, but instead of, let's say 100%, I'm actually going to write 80 over here like this. So now you can see what happens. The nice thing what happens is that if I'm using the percentage, see, I don't need to worry about the fact that how wide the screen is. It's always going to be 80%. And over here, remember when we set 25%, it's still going to be 25% for each of these list items. However, it's going to be from the 80%, right? So over here, if I would change it to 60, right, it would still work the same way. So you get an idea how I can actually work with these percentages much more better in this case than if I would have pixels, right? And after that, what we would want to do is actually place it right in the center, right? And obviously we know that we could set the margin to 0 and just place it horizontally like this, but we want to place it both vertically and horizontally. So I'm just going to use a position absolute. And the way we do that is we write a position over here and we say absolute. And since this one is relative, the banner, now all our navbar is just going to be floating around this banner. So whenever we're going to be setting our dimensions, it's going to be within this banner. It's not going to leave this page. So here I'm just going to say top, and I'm going to say the top is going to be 50%. I'd want 50% from the top, and I would want 50% from the left. So I write left 50%, right? The problem is that it also has its own width, right? So you can see what's happening, that it actually moved too far to the left and actually moved too far down, right? So what we need to do is we need to use this transform property, and we're going to say transform, and I'm going to say translate. And now what I would need to write is negative 50%, or here like this, and also over here negative 50%. So basically what I'm saying is ignore your own height and width, 50% of that, and actually move those 50% to the direction horizontally and vertically, right? And now you can see how easy it was. So now we have a transparent navbar that actually is working over here with a border as we're hovering. It is right exactly in the middle of the page, vertically and also horizontally. Now you can see the only problem over here, you can see this border, right? It's kind of a little bit messing it up, and that it's not in the bottom. So what we can do over here, you can see the line height, and instead of height I could just write 38, right? Something like this. So now what happens is that as I'm working actually with my border, it's much more noticeable. If I would go 36, it would completely work, right? So now I can see my full border. And this is the only thing that I needed to do, is actually change a little bit of line height, and so the height would be bigger. So now I can see how easy it actually was to create this navbar, transparent navbar, and put it right in the middle of the page. And again, instead of being a banner of 440 pixels, we could have placed it as the background image for a whole page.